Hey folks, Pat here from DNS. This Madison area fishing report is current as of February 2nd. Before we get started, I do want to stress that this report is for current conditions as of today's date. Many factors can cause ice conditions to vary, so please be careful no matter where you fish. For up-to-date ice conditions, please feel free to call the shop at 608-241-4225, and we'll tell you what we're hearing around town. Or if you run into some sketchy ice yourself and want to give us a call, it'd be nice to be able to pass that information on to folks or post in the comments below here. Before we get started, just a couple things to touch on. The Yahara Fishing Club had their kids fishing day down at Brittingham Park. Got some pics here. Here's some guys portioning out bait, which we are happy to donate to this great event. But just flipping through a bunch of great pics here, you can just see a lot of smiles on a lot of kids' faces. I guess every kid caught fish that had a rod. They had 300 kids come through. They gave away 300 rods. And so it was just a great event that is hosted by a great group of folks. And as you can see, smiles all around. So thanks to them for doing that. And I would again encourage anybody to support. This girl caught a little walleye. I'd encourage anybody to support the Yahara Fishing Club. They're really out there doing great work for us here in the Madison chain. The Kicker Cup, they had their second event on Okachi last Sunday. Congrats to Jason Camerath and Tanner Luptow. They took first place with 6.56 pounds. Happy to also be a sponsor of this event. The Kicker Cup folks, they do bass tournaments in the summer, these winter cups, and they do a great job. So I believe the next event is on Wabisa. I think it's the 18th, and I guess we'll see how the ice holds up for that. Otherwise, other events going on. The Clean Lakes Alliance Frozen Assets Festival is going to be held on Lake Mendota off the Edgewater there. They should have good ice down there for that. The east end of the lake over there has better ice than the west end. But this is a kind of a cool event. They have just a bunch of stuff you can do. There's a 5K run on Saturday, and then they got some kites. They get a bunch of kite flying folks in on Sunday, and a bunch of other things you can do down there if you got kids, want to keep them busy, or if you want to fish down there, maybe stay away from the Edgewater this weekend because there's going to be a bunch of folks out on the ice. So there's that. We have posters in the window, and several of these posters have to do with Lake Kashkonong, and a lot of these events have been affected by poor ice. So this North Country Icebreaker, hosted by the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, is no longer hosting a fishing portion of the event. It's just going to be a banquet at the Kashkonong Mounds. So do go down and check it out. They're a great group of folks doing great work to protect public access to land, but no fishing for that event. Also, this Ladies Ice Fishing Day held at Dooner's Bar and Grill, it no longer has a fishing portion, but they're still going to do the prizes and stuff like that. There's also another event hosted by Bait Box on the Rock down in Fort Atkinson. They were doing a fishery out there as well, and that is also just going to be raffle prizes and stuff like that. So yeah, the ice down there really took a hit. They got more rain than we did, and then of course they got the river that flows through the lake there. Other events going on, as far as I know, the King of the Lakes event on Saturday is still going on. I haven't heard otherwise. So that's hosted at Christie's on Lake Wabisa. And you can catch fish from all over the whole chain and register them. It's a cool event, and we donated some stuff to the raffle there. Capital City Muskie School coming up March 23rd. You can't really read it there, but anyway, we got a little poster up for that. Cool event if you want to learn more about muskie fishing. And then the Mad City Gobblers have an event February 10th over at Rex's Innkeeper in Wanakee. So yeah, if you're a turkey hunter and want to support a local group doing great stuff, do that. Drinking with Scissors schedules up here. I believe their next event is this next Thursday in Mount Horeb. So anyway, a lot of events going on. If you have an event you'd like to promote, you can drop off a poster, and we're happy to do that. I think that's it for the all the stuff before the report, so we can get talking about stuff going on around town. So the weather, here we go again with the warm weather. It's been in the 40s most of this week, and the warm temps are starting to take their toll on the ice locally. I'll get into some more details on ice conditions as we go through the report, but the forecast is calling for 40s through next week, with the next chance of cold weather not coming until after, looks like, Valentine's Day or so. So I guess we'll see how things hold up. Stay tuned here. We'll try to keep you updated with what we're hearing out there, but yeah. It's not great for the ice, but folks are getting out and getting fish. We do get a lot of calls from folks all over, especially south and east of Madison, where they got more rain than we did, checking on ice conditions. Sometimes people ask me, what are the ice conditions going to be like in a week or 2 weeks? I don't have a crystal ball. I have really no way of being able to tell any of that. So my report is just based on what I've heard recently within the last few days. Um, that being said, I discourage anybody from running ATVs at this point because conditions can change pretty rapidly. While we might have what sounds like thick enough ice on a lot of places, that can start to honeycomb pretty quick with these warm temps. And so I'm not advising anybody to run ATVs as those can go through a lot easier than folks on foot. But it's not all doom and gloom. Fishing around town has been good with gills showing up in good numbers at several spots, crappies being less common, and perch almost non-existent, really. Walleye and pike action remains good where you can access them on the perch panfish side of things. Spikes, waxies, and plastics have been working great depending on the fish's mood. So it's a good idea to come out there prepared. On the pike and walleye side of things, jumbo and large shiners have been doing great for the pike, but also getting some nice walleyes. But otherwise, walleye folks using blacktail chubs and our small suckers we have here at the shop have been doing really well. I thought I'd be done talking about rivers for a while, but folks are unwinterizing their boats and headed up to the Wisconsin River at least. So we'll be talking a little bit about that moving forward. But to get into a little more detail, up here to Cherokee. So the ice up there it is a little softer on shore, but last I heard there was 8 inches of good ice with some slush on top. Anglers have found plentiful smaller fish, mostly closer to shore in here near Cherokee Park, with the bigger fish sounding like they're a little bit more out a little bit out here a little bit ways. But the water out there sounds like it's cloudier, so you got to work for those fish. But they are getting fish up there. Tip-up action remains pretty good. The 113 bridge is capped over with ice still. Down on Lake Mendota, lots to talk about here. We talked about some sketchy ice conditions last week, and those haven't gotten any better. But shoreline areas and bays around town should be fishable through the weekend, and folks are venturing out further offshore by foot. But I would definitely proceed with caution if you're doing that. Definitely nobody running ATVs anymore, although I did hear a guy was zooming across the lake yesterday, but I would not recommend that. I'm hearing about 5 to 6 inches of ice pretty much everywhere on Mendota out over the deeper water. But like I said, that ice can honeycomb pretty quick, and 6 inches of bad ice is, worse than 2 inches of good ice. So just be careful where you're going out there. Sketchy areas to avoid would be west of Governor's Island over here. There was a crack that formed there, so that ice is going to be thinner and not getting any thicker, that's for sure. They're down off Mendota County Park. A lot of folks come in here and mention that they're going down to Mendota County Park, and I'm like, well, if you go in there, be real careful because there was 3.5, 4 inches ice in spots out here last week. So now, I'd be careful. I'd also be careful down by, Captain Bill's in this area where you got some water coming in west of Picnic Point or Second Point was some thin ice, even when we had the cold snap come through. So that's certainly not going to be any thicker right now, but a guy was just in this morning and was telling me that University Bay didn't look good. So I don't know. I don't have any first-hand experience. He didn't walk out on it, but none of the ice really looks good right now. But it is fishable in a lot of spots. But University Shoreline, folks have been getting on there. Warner Bay, folks have been getting on there and getting some good pike. They've been getting in off Governor's Island and getting out here to the break. A couple guys yesterday were out on Dunn's, still walking out there. I love Dunn's Bar more than most people, but I don't think I'd be walking out there, I guess. But to each his own, and please, again, I'm going to say this over and over, be safe out there. So Lake Monona, areas to avoid would be where the Yahara River dumps in here. Otherwise, I've really heard, 5 to 6 inches across the whole lake still. It's of good ice with some slush on top. Folks are getting out, but it's pretty much the same thing as Mendota. Just be very careful when you're out there. With the warm weather, there's no way that I can tell how long this ice is going to last. But a lot of your shallow bays are getting fish, and of course the star of that being Monona Bay, which we'll get to last. But down to Weechowuk Bay, formerly Squaw Bay, is they've been getting some panfish down there and some nice pike and walleye coming out of there. Haven't heard much out of Turville Bay. I heard one report, a guy poking around down there, but didn't have much to report, but that's usually a good spot this time of year. But then, of course, Monona Bay is kind of the shining star of the Madison chain right now. It's really the only place where folks are getting really a lot of fish and a consistent bite over there. So down here off this point was where the Yahara Fishing Club had their kids fishing day. Tons of fish being caught down there. just off the point here and to the south. I was out on Wednesday. I actually was on a bit of a scouting mission, and I walked everywhere from over here on the west end by the shelter house there, all the way down to the trestles over here by the South Triangle, up here towards Brittingham Beach, and then back out to the middle and around. There were a lot of folks getting fish out from Brittingham Beach. I found fish everywhere I went, but I will say that most of the fish, I found most of my fish on the western 2/3 of the lake. I didn't do super well down here. I found some tiny perch, but that was really about it. But anyway, Monona Bay has been good. The ice down there has been all right. It's not, it's not getting any better, of course, but access as of yesterday was still pretty good. I had at least 9 inches of good ice when I was out there on Wednesday with some slush on top. I would expect there to be 7 or 8 inches by now with slush on top, but I haven't heard any reports of anything sketchy over there, and folks are getting a lot of fish. But Lake Wingra, I'm sure there's ice. I would be careful if you go on over here off what do you call it, Knickerbocker Drive or whatever. There's a lot of springs down in this west end of the lake, but I'm sure there's fish being caught down there. Upper Mud, folks have been getting out on upper mud, and I hear the ice is still 7-8 inches ice out there or more. But the problem is walking in. It's this path over here has been getting a little soft from what I hear. So if you go in there, be expected, maybe bring your knee boots or something, because they're getting fish out there, and actually some pretty decent action. But it's it's getting a little sloppy getting back there. Down on Wabisa, they've been getting some gills up here to Lake Farm. Waxworms actually sound like they're the bait of choice up there lately, but they're getting some good gills up there. Off and on, it can be hit or miss like a lot of places, but and some decent pike. I'm pretty sure all the permanent the guys with permanent shacks out there have pulled those. Some walleyes off Hog Island, and some panfish just to the south of Hog Island. I heard a report on. Also, some good walleyes from Babcock down to Bible camp down here. I had a couple folks come down and say they were going to the south end of the lake. That's usually a great late season spot, but I haven't heard back from them. But like I said, usually that's a good late season spot. Haven't heard much out of. And the ice on Wabisa I've heard is like 8 or 9 inches with slush on top. Nobody's running ATVs out there, and again use caution. Same thing down in Kegonsa. I don't think anybody's running ATVs out there anymore. 8 or 9 inches ice with some slush on top. And I haven't really heard many reports. I heard about somebody got into some nice gills down here on the southeast end of the lake in the weeds down there. But if you're fishing out there, Kegonsa State Park, always a pretty safe bet. As far as other stuff goes, like I mentioned in the intro, down here to Kashkonong, it sounds like the ice is not great. Some of these bays are probably good for foot travel, but they've canceled the fishing portion of 3 fisheries down there. I imagine folks are getting in the river and fishing in there, so there's probably some walleyes to be caught. I'm sure some walleyes to be caught up here at the Jefferson Dam. Haven't heard. Just going to pause her here quick. All right, and we're back. I was going to move up to Beaver Dam here, but a guy that just came in was looking for creepers, and he said he tried to get off Governor's Island over here on Mendota, and he said there's open water over here now. So if you're going off Governor's, go off the east side here on the Warner Bay side and get around. He said you can still get around there, but he did say the ice was very slick too, so that's why he was in for creepers. But anyway, where were we? Kashkonong, I was going to talk about Beaver Dam. Yeah, Beaver Dam. I don't know what the ice is like up there, but I heard some folks were getting some walleyes a little bit ago. Otherwise, over to the Wisconsin River. Oh, some folks have been getting some trout up to Devil's Lake. It sounds like the ice is in decent shape up there, slushy on top, but folks are getting some trout up there. So that, is a little more protected water, so could hold its ice a little bit longer. But anyway, down to the river. We have, like I said in the intro, I'm hearing about a lot of folks unwinterizing their boats already and getting on the river and up to the dams here. So all your dams up and down the river are going to be holding fish. I had one guy in who said that he got into some good walleye. He was the only one up there, but he was still dodging ice chunks at that point. But, so yeah, if you want to get your boat out, it's the ice isn't looking great, but folks over here on Lake Wisconsin, I would avoid the main channel out here, the main part of the lake. Certainly with an ATV, but even maybe foot traffic, be careful out there. But different areas like Harmony Grove and Moon Valley and your bays and stuff like that, I've heard are still producing good panfish. So it's we'll see how the ice is. I haven't heard exactly how thick the ice is on some of those bays, but I imagine it's a lot like it is around town here. The walleye folks out in the main lake have been struggling because of large schools of shad. Folks have been saying they mark them on their Vexilars that come through, and it can be it's a ridiculous amount of shad apparently. So anyway, Dells Dam also a great option if you're in a boat or the Dells area. Castle Rock, I heard about sketchy ice up there. Not a lot of folks getting on, but below the dam, bound to be a good option if you got your boat. Same thing with Petenwell, and again there, I haven't heard about a lot of folks getting on up there either, just because of sketchy ice, and they had a lot of heaves they were dealing with, and of course that's a flowage, so they're dealing with current issues. Over to La Crosse, the backwaters on the Mississippi should be good through the weekend, I would think. But do use caution. Folks are launching boats out in the main river at some of the dams up and down the river. So, and getting some sauger and walleye, as far as I understand it. It's sad to see the ice go so fast. Some of the airboat guys were getting out just a couple of days ago. I don't know how long that'll last, but if you got an airboat, you can get back to some of those remote backwaters and get some fish. But again, ice is, going fast. Over to Milwaukee, I don't. Nobody's on the harbors anymore on ice. I don't know if it's completely ice free, like maybe the lagoons over here behind. What do you call it? Summerfest would have. Oh, Summerfest lagoons would have. Some ice on them there, but who knows? But they are launching boats and fishing in the harbors. I talked to a couple folks that are heading over there steelhead fishing, so that's usually not even a thing until late February, but here we are. So folks are fishing the tribs, looking for steel, and that's where we're headed now. We got a lot of this. The ice is going quick, so maybe it's time to start focusing on other stuff, which I guess is a good segue into trout fishing. So inland trout catch and release season is open, and from what I've heard, all area streams are readily fishable, and folks are finding good fish. The bite window this time of year on a warm and sunny day is usually from 10 to 2, and on a cloudy, cooler day, it's more like 11 to 1. But with more of the snow melting every day, we're looking at some prime conditions for great winter trout fishing. Of course, just a reminder that you do have to let everything go you catch, and only artificial lures can be used this time of year until it opens for Saturday of May. On the spinning gear side of things, a Rapala countdown or a crappie-sized tube jig works slowly through deep pools, can be very effective this time of year. Otherwise, fly anglers drifting woolly buggers and nymphs through deeper tailouts and pools is a pretty safe bet, but all you really need is the good old pink squirrel. But there's lots of options out there nymph-wise. Little stonefly nymphs can be good. This is just like a little, I don't even know what it's called, but it's got a little orange pinkish bead on it. But little nymphs like that, beadhead nymphs are great. Dry flies, I've had a lot of friends telling me that they've run into some hatches. Harley was out yesterday, found a midge hatch. So I think I went over these last week, but tiny little midge dry flies. And I also had a friend tell me he got into a blue-winged olive hatch already. So blue-winged olives, this is a black caddis. You could find caddis well, no, not really. Stoneflies, if you see anything hatching that looks like a little moth, it's going to be a stonefly. And anything dark colored this time of year is going to be a pretty good bet. Get out there and do some trout fishing. We might be moving on from ice fishing here pretty quick. I don't want to call it officially, but anyway, I guess that's it for the report. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please call the shop if you have any reports on ice or otherwise. Post in the comments below. And please do be safe. And we will talk to you next week with probably a bunch more news. So take care.